Hi everyone, welcome back to the 21 and Sensory podcast with me, Emily. On today's show, I have the wonderful special guest, Keira Edwards. Keira is an autistic journalist who is one of 4 BBC Sounds Audiolab Creators for 2025. BBC Sounds Audiolab is an accelerator programme with one big ambition: to amplify next generation storytellers and audio creatives. With a focus on underrepresented UK voices and experiences, they are helping to transform fresh and distinctive ideas into narrative-led podcasts, whilst also helping the creators to grow their professional production skills. I'll be chatting to Keira all about her podcast, It's So Loud in Here. But first, Keira, would you like to say hello?
Hi, thank you for having me on, Emily.
No worries. I'm really excited to hear about your whole experience as part of the Audiolab Creators kind of program. Maybe we could start with a bit more about you and your background, and maybe we can discuss any diagnoses you have. I like to kind of build a bit of a foundation so that people know who you are, and then we can talk about your podcast.
Hi, I'm Keira. I'm 22. I was diagnosed with autism when I was 14. It was about a month before my 15th birthday, so I say 15 most of the time.
Mhm.
And also dyspraxia. I was always the weird kid. I was the very oblivious autistic person until I got my diagnosis. I had no clue, nothing. Everything I was doing was different.
Mhm.
And then I got my diagnosis and went, oh, that's why friends have been hard. And now I'm a massive advocate for real autistic experiences, including the good and the bad, because I always think you shouldn't sugarcoat the disabling parts, but
Mhm.
you also shouldn't frame it as always terrible, because if I wasn't autistic, I wouldn't have the absolutely bonkers interests I'm into.
Excellent. And I know as part of your podcast, you're saying like how much you're into like painting Warhammer and things like that. And I love people's special interests. So it'd be really interesting to hear more about your special interests later on. So you found out you were autistic age 14. So secondary school, is that right?
Yeah, I was in year 10, and
Mm-hmm.
the only reason I got diagnosed at that age was because my mum is really bolshy, and I was struggling with finishing exams due to severe wrist pain, and I needed a computer,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't get one without a diagnosis. And if I didn't get one by the end of year 10, I'd have to handwrite all of my exams.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already in CAMS for anxiety, and anxiety turned into, I think you're autistic. So we were on the diagnosis process, but she was just really bolshy and basically just rang up and went, hey, we need a diagnosis now, or my child is going to struggle or potentially fail her GCSEs if we don't get one,
Mm-hmm.
because she'll be denied support. So I kind of luckily got fast tracked, else I could have been 16, 17 before I got it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so good. It's so good to hear that you actually like got it before your exams. Did you have like extra time as well?
I did have extra time, and I had where you could pause
Mm-hmm.
an exam and take a time out, and I rarely used either of them. The only time I used my pause was because I did English literature, and there was one poem I had to analyse, and there was one line that set off a song in my head, and I could not focus because it was related to my one of my special interests, which is Vocaloid and Hatsune Miku. And it was just going round and round and round. And I was like, I need to stop. I need to get this out of my head and refocus, because all I can hear is this song.
Incredible. I'm glad you were able to, use it. But that is, yeah. I feel like brains don't know when you're, necessarily like in a time pressure environment like an exam. You're like, not now. That's so funny. And I guess like it's interesting to hear that you were kind of fast tracked. Obviously, it makes sense because you had your exams coming up. So was this all like through the NHS?
Yeah, this was all through the NHS. And I think the only reason I did manage to get fast tracks, or from what we think was fast tracked, was because I had parental support and they would actively ring up and go, "We need this now.
Hmm.
This is going to be really detrimental if it's left." So I was really, really lucky to have that.
Parents play such an important part, and if you don't like have that support of a parent or a carer, like it's really hard to advocate for yourself. And just like the way parents can be like gently pushy but also like gently chase things, like it always amazes me. So it sounds like your mum was really on it. um, and yeah, I'm glad that you actually kind of got that support and accommodations. I mean, it's mad that you need a diagnosis just to have a computer. Like it's just a different way of doing an exam. Like you're still doing the exam.
Well, it was also so I could have it in class, because if I couldn't use a computer in class, I was somehow not allowed it for an exam. But
Right.
this was a long time ago now, so hopefully the system has become a little bit more access friendly.
So then after your kind of GCSEs, did you stay on where you were to do kind of A levels and things, or did you go to like a separate college?
Yeah, I stayed in my same school because we had a straight through sixth form,
Mhm.
and I did A levels and a BTEC in performing arts through my circus school because I'm still the weird kid. And then I went off to university.
Cool. The circus school sounds cool. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, we just had a club in our area, and I've done it since I was little,
Mhm.
and it's just really fun.
Do you have a particular skill?
Yeah, I do aerial, so that's like your hoop in the air, your silks, and also something called poi, which is less known, which is like two balls on strings and you spin them round and make pretty patterns. And I can also do them on fire, which is why I've got
Whoa.
a little bit of a nickname for being an arsonist, but because I'm just like, because I like fire, but that's only because I like to spin my poi on
Yeah.
fire. I'm terrified of other props on fire. Won't go near them.
I
I'll
like that.
have
Yeah.
my ones though.
I like that you have to caveat it, but like you know, it's because of the skill, not because I just enjoy setting fire to things. Oh, that's
Oh
so
gosh, no,
cool.
I'm scared of lighters when lighting a candle, but I'm like, oh, I will just put these two massive wicks in paraffin and spin them around my face.
Excellent. And they're like kind of like weighted things, aren't they? Like on the end of the string, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's how you get them to swing, and you can get them
right.
in various weights and lengths.
Oh, how cool. And does that almost kind of, do you feel like that's almost like a bit of a stim as well?
um, I don't know. I've never really thought of it that way. I've just kind of used it as an excuse to go outside.
Hmm.
Because especially when I get exhausted or burnt out, I very much tend to keep to myself and in my room.
Hmm.
So I try and give it as an excuse to go to the park.
Okay, that's cool. I'd love to see someone doing that at the park. It'd be so interesting to watch. Especially, I mean, I guess you're not setting them on fire at the park.
Oh no, I take non-fire ones out and about. I only do fire when I lived with my parents. We have wet towels, fire extinguisher. We have the whole works.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That's so cool. I'm so glad I asked about the circus school. Um, so, university, tell us a bit about that. Did you get kind of support? Like, was there any kind of accommodations? What did you study? How was your university experience?
University was hard.
Hmm.
I studied broadcast journalism, which is quite an intense course.
Hmm.
And I did get support, but it was quite hard because it was when I was getting it in my first year, it was you turn up to a meeting and they asked you what you needed. But I'd never been to university.
Yeah.
I'd gotten support probably about 6 months before everything shut for COVID. So I was not quite sure what I needed,
Hmm.
but it gave me a couple of things I did. So I got my computer for exams, I got to be in a quieter room. They let me wear earplugs during my exams, and I only discovered in my third year that I could get deadline extensions. I was never told I could have that.
That's so annoying.
And I only got one because I had a breakdown in the middle of a lecture when I realised I'd misunderstood what the assignment was. And I thought I'd done it, but I'd done it
Mm.
all wrong and I was a complete mess.
Oh.
I still got it in on time though. I didn't use the extension.
Did you not? That's a testament to you.
I'm a catastrophizer, so it was, well, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I'm never going to get it in on time, I'm going to fail, the world's going to end, I'm going to die.
Like worst case scenario.
Yeah, I always go to there, panic about it, and then proceed to do it in the time frame anyways.
Excellent. So really it was all kind of on you to be like, what do you need? Which seems a little bit mad, especially as you say, like, it's your first experience of university. Like, was it hard to kind of know what to ask for and advocate for yourself? And also did you live away from home?
Yeah, I lived away from home, but I was really, really lucky again with family as they probably travelled from Newcastle to Nottingham
Mhm,
every 2 to 3 weeks because I'd had a breakdown or I got stressed over coursework.
mhm,
I was a bit of a mess during my second and third year. I got very overwhelmed. I nearly dropped out multiple times because I just didn't think I could do it.
mhm.
And then I think I got a case of burnout, which caused my health to tank massively, but it was a whole up in the air. I didn't know what was wrong, if I was chronically ill, which I am a little bit,
Mhm.
but it's not as serious as it was then, which I think was just burnout amplified. So I could
Right.
barely leave my room, I could barely go to class. I had active permission for me to, for when I had a 9 to 5 day, for me to go in, do my work, and not have to stay for, because we did a news broadcast at the end of the day. But if I
Oh,
was
okay.
done and I wasn't needed for that, I had permission to go home if I was really, really struggling.
Right. Okay.
So by the end of my degree, I had dropped out of just about every society. I just did what I could do to
Yeah.
get to the end. It was tough. And I think had I not had again family support, that they'd come down, that they'd basically have to via text drag me sobbing off the floor 300 miles
Um,
away,
oh.
I don't think I would have got my degree. So I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, it's amazing that you stuck at it because it sounds really overwhelming. And obviously, you're passionate about journalism and broadcasting, but it sounded like a really intense course and like the news broadcast element of it as well. Like, it was that like every day?
No, it was once a week, but I had
Right.
to go and find two people to interview, sometimes on camera, sometimes just on mic, every week
Oh
without
my
fail.
word.
And that was really, really stressful. Everyone told me interviewing will get better the more you do it. It got worse for me. Absolutely got worse. But
I, oh,
by the time I got to about my second semester in my second year, it was kind of, well, I'm halfway through it, I might as well just finish it. So
yeah.
that's kind of what kept me going.
Mhm. I mean, it's amazing that you kept at it. And yeah, it's so nice that your family as well were really supportive because I think university is hard for everyone. It might be the first time people are away from home, etc. But to also be autistic and didn't really sound like you were in contact with like the disability support kind of people maybe at the university. Um,
I had a mentor, but it was basically we just kind of discussed what was going on, and she could be really helpful at times.
mm,
So there was times when I couldn't ask for things and she'd advocate on my behalf.
okay.
I completely forgot I had that for a second. So that was probably the most helpful thing,
Mhm.
but it again relied on other people doing things. So I believe I was supposed to have a mentor or some lecturer I was able to go to in my first year.
Mhm.
And I somehow ended up being the only person who was never assigned to one, and we never worked it out.
Okay. Right.
Well, I don't know if there was anyone else in my situation, but out of the people I knew,
Mhm.
everyone else got given someone, and I was just like, "Oh, okay."
It seems like it's really easy to kind of slip through the cracks at university, like in terms of just like people being assigned the right people or like having a tutor or a mentor or like unless you're kind of, you know, advocating for yourself and also if you don't realize these things exist, like you kind of think like they need some sort of like pack to start you off with sort of thing when you first start.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a general university experience because everyone
Mm,
in my course, no matter if they were neurodivergent or not, was getting a tutor because it was a lot of people's first time moving from home, just
mhm.
starting a degree, everything was different. So I think it's a general thing with the education system that no matter if you're disabled or not, things like this can slip through the cracks. But when you're disabled, it can just make the smallest things that much harder.
Yeah, yeah, massively. And the fact that you had to like kind of streamline what you were and weren't doing, like the fact that you had to drop out of societies and things, which is like a shame if you were enjoying them, kind of thing, just to do the kind of basics in order to graduate. Like it's amazing you stuck at it.
I mean, by that point, I was in my second semester of my third year when almost all hell broke loose. But it was really hard because
Mhm,
I slept for hours. That's basically all I did outside of lectures. I
mhm.
could just about keep myself alive. It was almost that I could study and I could live and I could do nothing else. So it was pure survival mode.
Yeah.
But because I stuck through, I got to hear and I got to, well, make the podcast I did.
Yeah. So you graduate from uni. Did you do anything kind of between university and this creator program, or was that something that you applied for straight out of university?
I was still doing my degree when I applied for this.
Whoa, okay.
So I took a module on podcasting, and my lecturer happened to bring up, oh, there's this thing called Audiolab. It's
Mhm,
for like marginalised and it's for people of less voice communities in the industry. I went, great, I'm autistic. This might be perfect for me to apply to.
mhm,
So I Googled it, found out it was still open, and realised this idea I've had for my dissertation that I dropped to make my dissertation documentary on another topic
mhm.
would be great to pitch. So this was actually a documentary idea for university before it turned into a
Oh.
podcast.
Oh, okay. That's so interesting.
So yeah, so I made a 2-minute trailer with 3 sound effects and just my voice. I submitted it expecting it to go nowhere because I was like, I'm 21, I don't think I'll get anywhere with this. And then
Mhm.
they asked for an interview.
Ooh.
And again, I did the interview. I was like, I've overshared. I'm horrific at not knowing when to shut up. So I thought I said way too much. And then they rang me up and was like, can you start in July?
Whoa.
So I was finishing my degree while looking for houses in Manchester. And I submitted my dissertation in May,
Mhm.
then had to move back home and to Newcastle and then move from Newcastle to Manchester and then 2 weeks later start my job.
Oh my word.
So I did 2 house moves in the space of about 6 weeks.
Wow. You seem to do a lot of life in that. Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I graduated 2 weeks into my job. I had to take a day off work to attend my own graduation ceremony.
Wow. That's mad. God, that's a lot of travel as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I went all over the place, but it's something I've gotten quite used to doing with my hobbies. I
Mhm.
live action role play. I go all over the country to hit people with foam swords, so it's always worth it.
Incredible. We're gonna have to come back to that. Um, wow. So you really did pack a lot of life into those few weeks, and to be like moving twice. Like, how were you in like a sort of like house share in Manchester? Is that? Like,
Yeah, I rent a room in someone's house,
right.
and the person I live with is lovely, and it's been compared to sharing with people at uni, it's been
Yeah.
really nice, and I've just had a nice living situation.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you've managed to find somewhere. Yeah. I mean, anywhere sounds better than sharing with multiple housemates. So that sounds good. So, wow. So, was this, were you based at like Media City? Is that
Yeah, I worked in Media City. It
okay?
still feels unreal that I've managed to work there for so long.
How cool. So, that's the BBC's place in Salford, isn't it? That's where a lot of their programs are done from as well,
Yeah, it
isn't it?
is.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So, what was the kind of first week like? Was it overwhelming? Did you get to meet other creators? Because you were one of four on the kind of scheme, weren't you?
Yeah, so the first week or half a week we started in the middle was essentially a welcome slash training couple of days.
Hmm.
It was packed, it was really intense, but I got to meet everyone,
Hmm.
and the other creators on the scheme are absolutely lovely. We have a WhatsApp support group,
Oh, that's
so we were in touch about all of our successes, problems throughout the whole creative process.
mhm.
And once it came out, everyone would drop when they were doing interviews and everyone would tune in when they were live.
Oh,
It was a super supportive group. But no, it was definitely overwhelming. There was a lot of information, and just seeing how fast I had to turn the series around. I made it in about between July and December.
right. Okay.
Was a bit of a okay, it got quite real and quite stressful of going, how on earth am I supposed to do this in this time frame?
Yeah.
Especially as someone who's, unless you count my job working in the clothing store, I've not really worked this kind of job before. So it was very, very new,
Mhm.
but it was it was just amazing for it to feel real and actually to go, I've done this.
Mhm.
So it was it was definitely a lot, and I have one memory. We did these funny doodle check-ins
Mhm.
throughout the days where we just see how everyone was, and we talk about how we were feeling. And everyone at one point was going, "I'm feeling great. Everything's been explained. I understand it now." And then there was me going, "I'm overwhelmed. I can hear the aircon. It's too loud, and that conversation is bugging me." So everyone was there going, I feel great. And I was just like, this aircon is horrific, which I talk about quite thoroughly through the series. I hate my office aircon.
So, were you in an open plan office?
Yeah, I work in an open plan office, but it's actually more structured than I expected it to be.
Okay.
So quite often it wasn't a scramble for seats. It was often everyone sat in the same seats.
Okay. Good. We don't like hot
But
desking.
yeah, it was hot desking, but
Oh,
if you turned up at 9, you would get your usual seats. But
right.
because it was a flexible work day, it was very much don't expect to have your usual seat if you turn up at 11 or 12,
Right. Okay. That's
which
fair
makes
enough.
a lot of
Yeah.
sense. But we had meeting rooms we could go off to. If I wanted a quiet cubby, I could go and find one on another floor.
Okay.
I could book myself a studio. So I had lots of space that I can go off by myself.
Mhm.
And they had a well-being room as well, which I could use when I needed. It was sometimes quite hard when I needed it and it was occupied, but one or two times I did sit and work in there because I was just like, I just need space
Mhm.
because I feel overwhelmed, and it means I can have a bit of a cry because sometimes that's just how I get my feelings out, and it's no one's fault. It's
Yeah.
just how I regulate myself
Mhm.
and then get what I need to do done in an environment where I don't have to think there's so many people around me. Are they watching me? Do they think I'm not working hard enough? So it takes
Yeah.
all that judgment out, and I could put myself in a nice small space, and I could dim the lights down. It was nice to have access to that if I needed it.
Yeah. And so what was the difference in, say, a kind of like the smaller meeting room as like compared to the like well-being kind of room? Was it more of a kind of like sensory space?
Yeah, it was designed for people who needed space when they're overwhelmed, and also for um, women who'd had children who were, for example, still pumping and needed privacy.
Right. Okay.
So compared to most other meeting rooms which you could look in,
Hmm.
it was completely closed off, and you could also much more easily tamper with the lights to your own settings. So in
Great.
an office, the lights are one brightness.
Yeah.
You can't control how bright the sun is either. But in this, it was a completely windowless room, and I could dim the lights quite low if I needed it.
Hmm.
And and I also didn't have to worry about if I decided to put something like spa music on my phone because I just felt too sensory to wear my headphones.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about disturbing anyone,
Hmm.
and I could actually put calm music on and get myself in a position where I can go, okay, I can go back into my office and I can put my headphones on and work. I always
Right.
worked in my headphones.
Hmm.
It blocked out the extra noise. Half the time I didn't have things on. Sometimes, as I say in my podcast, I have a work playlist of songs in other languages because I can listen to things with lyrics if I don't understand them.
Okay.
But it was just to switch everything off around me,
Yeah.
or else I will talk to someone, or I will get annoyed at sounds being too loud, or I get distracted. So
Hmm.
it was very much a focus technique for myself.
Okay. It sounds like you've got so many like little like coping mechanisms in order to like work at your best kind of capacity, like all these ways of like how to focus or how to kind of get back to a state of focus by dimming the lights and putting music on in the background. Like it sounds like you kind of from kind of what it sounded like masking in an office to actually being able to do your best work in a quiet well-being room. That sounds like you've managed to kind of work out stuff along the way.
Yeah, I didn't use the well-being room too often because the stressful thing is you had to walk through another open plan office to see if it was open. And
Oh,
if it said engaged, you were kind of awkwardly there and had to go back up to my floor and be like, yeah, so it was closed.
oh.
So I didn't use it too much, but I used it one day when I was really, really overwhelmed and I really needed that space. And it was probably one of the best things
Mhm.
I could do. And I say all of those techniques like they work perfectly all the time. And I didn't have days where I just couldn't do anything, or I had days where I was in intense hyper focus and I maybe made one cup of coffee and then realized I'd forgotten to eat lunch.
Mhm.
It's a complete almost roulette of how I'm going to work. So
Yeah.
being armed with enough things to try is quite handy.
Mhm.
But sometimes I just have days where nothing works.
Yeah.
No matter how much you try,
Mhm.
it's just one of those days.
That's nice to hear though, in terms of I feel like sometimes you can't catch a break, like nothing's working and you just have to kind of sit with it and just do your best. But the fact that you were, concerned about like am I working hard enough? What are people like how am I being perceived? How like I wish other people knew how much internal just like cycling of thoughts goes on, because that's a lot to kind of try and quieten and do work at the same time. It
Oh
amazes me
yeah.
that people don't have that.
Yeah, I've never understood how people don't have that. And I think it's also I cover a little bit of the internal noise in
Mhm.
my sleep episode, but that same thing even with sleep carries over to daily life. Is It's a hidden toll that people don't realize if you don't have it how absolutely exhausting it is.
Yeah.
And I think the only people who understand are fellow neurodivergent people.
Mhm.
My parents 50-50. I think some of it is just because they don't live it, but they've heard so many tales from myself because they're normally people I stress text when things
Mhm.
like that are happening, that they can see the active mental and physical toll on me because I've
Mhm.
gone through another really severe bout of burnout. This is probably the worst burnout I've ever had. And I think some of it does come from that internal. I need to present myself as hardworking, a functioning adult. I need to show up. I need to smile.
Yeah.
I need to hope people. I need to make sure I can secretly pause my music when people talk to me and hope they don't think I'm being rude, which
Mhm.
normally they don't. It just relaxes me to have something on.
Yeah.
And I am very, very fortunate that my office does not care that I have my noise cancelling headphones on
Mhm.
all the time.
That's good.
They're so, so relaxed with it, which has been one of the best things.
Mhm.
And nobody's questioned me about it. I've taken meetings with them on
Oh, okay.
because sometimes I just put them on noise cancelling because then I
Mhm.
can focus on what they're saying and not going, I can hear the aircon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been lucky to have a workplace that's just gone, what do you need?
Mhm.
It's okay. And so it's been really helpful to be able to have access to something that not only helps me focus, but helps me become less overwhelmed when things get a lot. And I don't always wear them, but I know I can always keep them on and I
Yeah.
have access to them. And it's very nice because they're they're comforting, and I can't really explain why. I've just grown attached to my one pair of headphones.
Mhm. Excellent. I was going to say to you as well, like, I guess it's a little bit different because I know you were applying through this audio lab kind of scheme, but a lot of people are quite, it's quite a tough decision to know whether or not to disclose that, you're autistic or neurodivergent. And the fact that you were going,
Mm.
you, from the start, obviously, it was clear that you wanted to do a podcast based around your autistic, experience. Like, do you think, yeah, I thought I'd just raise that as a kind of like, it's interesting that from the start you were very open, but obviously that's because of what the scheme was kind of, underrepresented voices, etc. Do you think kind of if you'd just gone into a workplace straight from graduating, like, do you think you would have disclosed then?
I'm someone who always discloses, whether it's to my own detriment, I don't know.
Mm.
But for me, I will turn up to a workplace and probably introduce myself of, hi, I'm Kira, I'm autistic and I like cats.
You're straight out there with it.
So it would be very quickly on like my first day that people
Right.
would find out I'm autistic.
Mhm.
I'm massively advocate for neurodivergent experiences. I'm really passionate about just disability rights in general, accessibility, mental health support.
Mhm.
Because whilst I'm obviously not disabled in every way, shape, or form, facing barriers myself and also knowing the privilege I have because I don't need a wheelchair. I can walk. I can take things like the stairs. I have sometimes easier access needs.
Mhm.
So I find it really important as a way to also advocate about other experiences because I also know where I'm disadvantaged and where I'm privileged as well.
Mhm.
Sorry, I went off topic there.
No. That's really, it's really interesting to hear. Like, I feel like a lot of people, including myself, don't have the confidence to necessarily apply for jobs or come into a workplace and like immediately disclose. But I can absolutely see the pros of just getting it out there, like not having to worry and to kind of mask. But then the kind of cons of potential stigma and misunderstanding and stuff. There's so many pros and cons, but it's really great to hear someone who is confident to disclose and to just own it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have been silently rejected from further processes because I've disclosed. I don't know if I'll ever find that out.
Mhm.
But I think it's because I've just been so open about being autistic. It probably won't surprise you if I said I ran a small podcast at 17 during COVID.
Okay.
I started documenting my experiences with like short little 5-minute episodes.
Mhm.
So I've always been really, really open. And I guess I've just gone, well, if they'll find out within the first day, they might as well know
Mhm.
it's who I am and I can't really change it.
Yeah. Do you think as well having a diagnosis in your kind of early teens maybe help that because you've known longer kind of thing? Or like you've been more aware of it? I guess it's just coming to terms with it and being comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I think experience is so different depending on the age you were diagnosed.
Mm.
I very much at 15 was like, okay, I'm autistic, I accept it to everyone. But
Yeah.
inwardly, I was a little bit like, okay, this is a lot. So I also took my time to inwardly accept it, but I think I accepted it faster because I was caught younger.
Mhm.
But then I also had the experience that sometimes as I got older, I, and it's probably because my brain was also developing, that I felt quite a bit of my autistic traits getting stronger, finding life harder and harder. And whereas some people unmask and learn as an adult and have got so far in life,
Mm.
I sometimes felt like I was watching my future slip away from me. And it can be quite hard when you go, can I ever do what I thought I used to be able to because things are getting harder and I'm
Yeah.
recognizing them? I think it's hard no matter what age
Yeah.
you get it, but I think I accepted it quicker and more easily being younger, but that's probably because it also explained why I had so many problems with friends
Mhm.
and I got that explanation.
Mhm.
But there's also, I think, watching yourself grow up and watching traits get stronger and also going, what will this mean for my future?
Yeah. There's pros and cons, isn't there?
Yeah, for an adult, it'll be also quite hard of the why didn't I get support? So I think no matter the age,
Yeah.
there's upsides and there's downsides, but I think having the diagnosis and having the access to support is just the best thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And coming back to your podcast, because I know you mentioned you did an episode on sleep. It's the first episode, isn't it? I think. And you said that,
Yes,
yeah,
because
that is right.
that's where everything started from, was from a sleepless night because I had
Ah,
so many thoughts in my head and they wouldn't shut up. And I literally wrote down in my phone, it's so loud in here, good dissertation idea. So the title came before everything. The title came probably a year before I applied.
oh wow.
So it had floated around for a good while, but I also structured it as an average day. So from going to bed to getting up to taking the bus to work to going home and spending time with family, friends,
Hmm.
and then just hobbies because hobbies are fun and don't really fit anywhere. And I wanted to end with a slightly more positive note.
Hmm. It's so interesting that it came like that the idea came to you just like one night, like as you were trying to fall asleep, and that kind of is the neurodivergent experience, isn't it? Like just your head is so full of ideas and it's keeping you awake. But it was really interesting to hear you working alongside Dr. Tom Nicholson as well as the kind of, I guess, neurodiversity expert. Is that the best way of putting his title?
Yeah, he's a professor of mental health nursing at Durham University, but also does loads of talks on neurodiversity and I think especially ADHD. And I interviewed him in person, and he's absolutely lovely and very, very knowledgeable.
Mhm.
It was probably one of the hardest things to try and cut that interview down because there was so much there. I was like, I want to put all of this in, and then getting from those who are reviewing it going, "You do need to shrink that." And I'm like, "But it's so good." But that's probably the autistic in me
Mhm.
going, "I can talk for hours, so can you. This is fine."
Yeah. I was gonna ask you as well about, like, were there certain kind of constraints in terms of, like, how long an episode could be or how much of, a certain person talking you could include? Like, are there kind of sort of I imagine there's rules and regulations as to, like, what you can and can't sort of do with a podcast?
There weren't exactly rules and regulations. There was here's a rough time per episode,
Okay.
and then it's kind of all on judgment
Right.
on do you think if somebody has been talking for 3 minutes and it's just a long run form of audio, do you think people would listen to it? It's that kind of
Right.
trying to take it from the listener's perspective,
Mhm.
but also having other eyes on what was being made
Mhm.
because then you could bounce opinions off each other going, I think you should cut this, and I can go, no, as this is quite key to being neurodivergent, I think we should keep it.
Okay.
And there was a lot of compromise,
Mhm.
but it was a lot of being able to work in a way that sounded best and flowed in the best for our storytelling, because that was the main thing, is the story came first and we worked around long pieces of audio afterwards. So if we wanted to keep a whole section, we go, okay, how do we break it up? Can we put a sentence for myself in it?
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that your perspective and your voice was kind of heard in that process, because especially if you think, something's really important to keep in, like, obviously get that there has to be like compromise, but if it's something that's really important to the neurodivergent experience that you want people to hear, like, you want to still include it. But
Yeah,
it sounded like a very much a collaborative process between
yeah,
a kind of team.
yeah, it absolutely was a collaborative process between me and my team. And honestly, I don't know what I would have done without their help and expertise,
Mhm.
because they really brought it from my wobbly drafts, really helped me pull it into what it became. But with being able to voice my own opinions, it reminds me of one thing that I kept in, which was on public transport, of one of my guests saying that they were dyslexic.
Mhm.
And that was, I think we should cut that. And I was there going, no, I think that's really key to the neurodivergent experience because you're overwhelmed and then the signs are harder.
Yeah.
So we ended up wording that into the script as a way of, well, there's so much noise and then you have to read the signs and then you have to know where you're going.
Mhm.
So we worked it into a way that would fit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that, yeah, you were taken like seriously on things like that, because, like, you're right, that's someone's kind of whole experience and their whole world each day. As someone
Yeah.
who's also dyslexic, I definitely get that.
So yeah, it was. I made some compromises, I made some sacrifices, but it was also nice when I went, actually, I think this is really key,
Mhm.
and I will put my foot down that I, just because I was younger, I was more inexperienced,
Mhm.
that I wasn't overlooked because it was coming very, very personally from myself, and I'd got a lot of personal stories from others, and I wanted to reflect that.
Yeah, people should listen to the podcast, and obviously, I will link in the show notes. But I feel like you've got so much of you in the podcast, which I think is really important. But also other neurodivergent voices from all walks of life, whether they are Dr. Tom or people with lived experience. Like, I think you've got such a good range of people, considering the kind of length of an episode and things like that. Like, you've managed to kind of get in so many different perspectives. And I was going to ask you as well, like, you mentioned about kind of scripting and stuff like that. Like, how do you plan a BBC Sounds podcast? Like, what is the process from beginning to end? Like, what percentage of that 6 months did you spend in a studio? Or out and about? Or how much time did you spend on sound design? Like, I'd love to know the kind of breakdown.
So I think it's different for everyone, but for how mine went is I think the first month and a half, 2 months was very much focused on research and research calls. So it was sending out lots and lots and lots of emails and speaking to people over Teams and Zoom
Hmm.
to very much gauge their personal experiences, but also how they speak, because a really key thing for audio is not getting 1 or 2 word answers.
Right.
So we have introductory calls to rule out people who might go, "How is your experience? Hard," and just
Hmm.
that, just leave it like that. So there was a lot focused on research on what were my episode themes, what was my focus on, who am I talking to, and getting that all in order, because you can't really make a series if you don't know what your episodes are.
Yeah.
So once I got that locked down, that was when I really started the interviewing process. And from there, it all kind of went in a very random order,
Hmm.
because I wouldn't do each episode in order. I'd do it when people were available.
Right.
So I think the second episode got done first.
Okay.
But then I completely changed the structure after I'd made the first one. So that one got changed again. So it went through a lot of reviews from a very, very rough draft of, here's a basic script, here's the clips I like,
Hmm.
here's how I think it should fit together. And then from there, we'd work out, actually, is this the right order? Do we need to put more review in here? Do we need to put an expert in here?
Right.
And some of the systems we had were absolutely brilliant, where you could see a whole transcript of everything that was being said, broken down to who said it.
Okay.
So it could be really handy to go, actually, I want that bit to be further down because when I read it, it doesn't fit the order. So a lot of the time was spent between interviewing and editing and also reviewing, because the people who run the program are the commissioners. So they're the top people, and
Hmm.
me and my team send drafts of episodes and they come back with their own feedback. And we either go, no, we have our reasons for keeping it this way, or we change things up.
Right.
So by the end of it, it was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of phone recordings. I recorded so many voiceovers on my phone because there was no point booking a studio, spending ages perfecting everything and nicely editing it in when we were going to change it anyway.
Hmm.
So it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of changing, a lot of slotting in new voiceovers, putting in new clips, going, do we actually need something more from Dr. Tom?
Hmm.
And then it kind of got to just finalizing everything. The sound design came in quite towards the end,
Okay.
because we gave our sound designer, we gave him a brief and we sent the episodes as they came,
Hmm.
and they'd come back, we'd give small notes of feedback. They were normally very, very minor. And then it'd go back, it would get slightly tweaked, and then it would get signed off. And the first time I heard any of my episodes, I can't remember which one I heard first, but I listened to it on the tram home on the way from work and I just cried because
Oh.
it just sounded how I envisioned it. And
Hmm.
it was one of the most, it was so, there was so much relief, so much emotion there, going, someone's done it.
Hmm.
Someone's turned my head into sound.
Yeah. That's quite amazing, isn't it, really, to get your lived experience of the world into other people's ears.
Yeah, and I think the way we approached it was, don't be afraid to go too much.
Mm.
We'd much rather it be too much and we can take things away later than it be too little.
Yeah.
So we very much went on the approach of go big
Mhm.
because you can't really do overwhelm if it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like you saying that you listen to it on the tram, there's like a section from like, is it a tram or it might be a train, where it was just like you hear the different kind of like conversations between people and people having out loud phone conversations, which we'll never understand. Um, I think you got like someone actually was like headphones, like come on, people. I love that little audio bit.
Yeah, there were some absolutely amazing quotes from the people I interviewed. Honestly, I loved some of the really funny quips that people would come up with that I just had to keep in because it just gave them all so it gave everyone so much personality, and I like having a bit of humour, a bit
Mm.
of fun to what can ultimately be quite a heavy topic.
Yeah.
But actually, with some of the sounds, you might be quite surprised that it wasn't one recording. So a lot of the sounds we recorded in the office
Really?
with colleagues.
Oh.
So that phone call was done in the office on a mic.
Excellent.
But things like the tram and other and the aircon,
Mm.
they were all actually recorded by myself. I took loads and loads of recordings on microphones, phones. I had this big, really fancy mic, which was essentially like a head, and there was a mic in each ear, which simulated how people hear. So we
Oh,
could
right,
really
yeah,
have like 360-degree sound for those listening with
right.
headphones. So there was a lot of running out and about and taking it all over the place to get everything we needed mixed with sound effects and random office recordings for extra bits we needed, especially when it came to conversations
Mm.
of like getting a phone conversation. What do? We needed someone with a deep voice. You asked someone with a deep voice to act like they're on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's how it really came together. So those sound effects were a huge team effort, and it was really nice that actually a lot of people got involved with all of my random requests. I think the crazy one was, "Hey, can four of you stand in a room and shout LARP commands down a mic?" I had to write a list of things for them to say. It was so funny, and and when I heard it, I was like, "This is brilliant." It sounded so good when actually put into into the sound design,
Mhm.
whereas it was probably mortifying for them when we recorded it.
But they can say they've been on a podcast, so, there's that claim to fame as well. Oh, it's so interesting. Like, I was also gonna ask as well, like, in terms of, like, editing it, was was it kind of you just editing it? Was it more of a kind of team effort? And also, was it overwhelming to edit? Because I know from my own podcast that you have to listen not only to yourself but also kind of the guests and yeah, I guess any sound kind of design as well. Like, was that overwhelming for you as an autistic person? Like the actual like editing process and having to keep rehearing things?
Um, I did most of the editing,
Mhm.
so a lot of it was done by me, or it was sat with another member of my team, and they'd, for example, give feedback and I'd work it into what I was already editing.
Okay.
But we also had this really fancy system that I did use that made editing a lot easier, where I give you a transcript and you could edit out the words and you could drag and drop certain bits and it would physically move them in the audio, and then you could export it
Whoa.
and put it back together. It was the most life-saving piece of software. Although I didn't have access to it, so it was often me and the team member either sat in a studio or sat on a Teams call with screen share on, editing it together.
Right. Okay.
And that was how we pulled the whole thing together because it would have been really hard doing it all really separately.
Well, yeah.
I could have and I would have done it,
Yeah.
but it was already an overwhelming process as it was. I was getting so tired towards the submission
Mhm.
date that it was one of the best things.
Yeah,
I could have had access to.
yeah. I need access to something like that because
It's called Descript.
script. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. But yeah, just to be able to like visually edit a podcast rather than have to listen to it all the time, I can see like that would be really helpful, especially like you were saying, like when you're just tired and you just need to kind of reorder bits and things.
I mean, I found that looking at sound waves for an extended period of time made me really sleepy. And I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I also found if there wasn't words, I was so prone to distraction because there just wasn't anything interesting. So sometimes when I was editing audio
Mm.
and I knew I was going to get distracted or get bored because it's just a waveform floating across my screen, I'd bring crochet into the office and I'd sit and make flowers and blankets
That's a good idea.
because it gave me something to focus, and I'd never make anything particularly hard, just something I could almost mindlessly do
Mhm.
while still focus. And that was something I did all the way through uni. I made entire cosplays in lectures. I made some crazy things in my lectures at uni.
Amazing. But I definitely get that as well. Like, I feel like to sit and like I almost want to be able to do what I do when I'm working, which is listen to something, but you can't, you have to listen to a podcast to edit it. You can't, like, there isn't another way apart from what you were saying. So I get that if at least you're busy with your hands, like there's something to focus on. I do get what you mean about the kind of waveforms and stuff. It's just it's hard not to get distracted. Exactly what you said.
It is, and then it's really hard to not get into that spiral of guilt and shame of I'm not working hard enough. Why can't I focus?
Mm,
This should be easy to just get this done.
mhm,
So it's quite a hard spiral. So I find it almost takes me out of it. And I've just ended up going, I do not care if people question me in the office because you can see into the studios.
mm.
I'm doing this to get it done in the way I can. And
Yeah.
nobody's really said anything. But it was its techniques as almost to get when things can get a bit tedious, it gets the tedious out into, ooh, I'm doing something
Yeah.
interesting. Something's constantly happening, but it's also so mindless that I can focus.
Mhm,
So I never make anything that involves loads of counting, color changes, anything particularly hard. If it's just I will casually just sit and make rows and rows and rows of blankets,
mhm.
which is just the same stitch round and round and
Yeah.
round, because that is more than enough to get me to focus.
Mhm.
I just need to do
Yeah.
something and not just sit and stare at a screen
Yeah.
as things move across it. And that's all that sometimes happens because sometimes you don't need to edit much. And it can be really hard when you're going through 1, 2 hours of an interview and you're trying to take the best bits out because you're only going to use 10, 15 minutes of it. You're looking for the best
Mhm,
bits. It can be really, really hard when they're so long.
mhm.
And actually, that was how I've worked out to get the best of it without switching off.
And I'm assuming you must have hours and hours of recordings that just don't get used, but it's that kind of you need to have more rather than less to pick from.
Yeah, definitely. And I always did quite long interviews because I know myself I can talk a bit too much, but it also allowed me to get pieces of context and information that listening back, I'd go, I wouldn't put someone actually saying it into the episode,
Mm.
but I'd absolutely use them as introductions, as explainers.
Yeah.
So I could gather all the context information that maybe would go in my script within an interview.
Mhm,
But then I could also work out what I liked and what I wanted to put in.
mhm,
And then everything said before and after could work into again how I script it, how I build the picture.
mhm. There's so many like layers to it, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's a lot that went into it.
And I was going to say as well, so obviously the podcast went live in February. Like, how do you feel about it now being kind of out in the world? Like, do you feel a sense of pride that it's now out there? Like, have you had any feedback from people? Like, how have you found the process of it like going live?
When it went live, it was quite weird because it just was kind of like, oh, I guess it's out now. Because I think I celebrated when I'd got it to submission, when it was
Yeah.
finished, not when it was out. So I'd kind of done that celebration a little bit early because it wasn't an actual reward right in front of me of everything's going to calm down. It was just, oh, I could find it on BBC Sounds now.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's quite cool. I was weirdly disconnected, but the more it was out and I have got messages on Instagram, I've got messages on LinkedIn, on email, and they've been really, really sweet.
Mhm.
I don't think I've had anything negative. It's just been really positive messages if I've seen so much of myself in it.
Oh.
And it's made it's made me feel really, really happy and really proud that I decided to explore a niche part of overwhelm
Mhm.
as its own separate topic
Yeah.
because I wanted to give sound its own spotlight 'cause it's normally always lumped together with something else.
Yeah.
And to be able to get the fact that SEN departments are sharing it to other schools, that charities are sharing it to families they support, it's been one of the most humbling experiences. And it's just made me so happy that I can help people understand
Mhm.
something that's quite hard to understand without living it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Like the fact that you're, like I said earlier, like getting that experience into other people's ears is it's a really hard thing to do, and you've managed to do it so well with so many different perspectives. So yeah, you should definitely be proud, and it's so cool to hear like schools sharing it with other schools and things like that. Like that must be so just exciting to hear, I guess.
I think once I started hearing from people, that was when it really started to be like, wow,
Hmm.
it's out. I've actually done it.
Hmm.
Because it felt like an abstract concept of it being out
Yeah.
until I knew people were listening to it and were speaking to me about it.
Hmm.
And then it suddenly became, I've done this. Despite all the challenges, despite all the things that being autistic makes it challenging,
Hmm.
I've done something that I never ever thought I would do. And 15-year-old me would have never thought that I would have ended up here. 15-year-old me would have thought I probably wasn't even sure I could have a job.
Yeah. I think yeah, that's amazing, and a credit to you for just sticking at things and sticking at life and just existing, because just existing in this world is hard, and you've actually managed to put that experience into like an audio format to share. Like that's huge. um and I was going to ask you as well, like this is a big question. It's almost like a kind of interview question of like, where do you see yourself in 5 years time, but not that. um what do you see yourself doing next? Like, are you still at the BBC? Like, how I don't understand how, like, does the audio lab thing like finish kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's just about to finish.
Okay.
So where I'm going next, I'm not sure,
Hmm.
but I have ideas on things I might want to make in the future.
Hmm.
For now, I'm recovering from burnout and I set up a small little TikTok account all about documenting my recovery and talking about my feelings. Again, I'm very bad at social media, so I talk way, way too much for what should be a standard video length. And I keep going, I'll re record that, and it gets longer.
Excellent. um where can people follow you on that? Like, would you like followers there?
I mean, I'm again open about it. It's at Living Neurodivergent, all one word on TikTok, and it's
Mhm.
only about less than a week old. I've only recently
Oh.
started to document it, but I thought now everything's calmed down
Mm.
and now I've seen how much positive reactions I've got from sharing my experience. I think I'll take it in stride and do it somewhere else while I'm recovering from
Yeah.
burnout to show what it can really be like.
Yeah, it's really like open of you to be like, do you know what next is recovery? like work is great and is important, but actually you've got to be your best self, haven't you, in order to exist and survive in this world. So I'm glad that you are taking the time out, and it sounded like such an involved kind of scheme or program, the kind of Audiolab thing, that you definitely deserve, I guess, just the time and space to like think about maybe what's next. And yeah, you'll have to do another podcast because you've got a great voice as well to listen to.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
I mean, I think I'm taking the post uni break just a little bit delayed.
oh, I mean, yeah, this could be your gap, like gap months or gap year. Like you could, I feel like people take, it's more kind of, I think, normalized to take breaks for different reasons between kind of career stuff as well. Like, I think.
I think I took a gap week at most between everything.
Yeah, you needed more than, I mean, you did so much.
Oh, it was absolutely worth
Yeah,
it. I couldn't turn down what was potentially a once in a lifetime opportunity.
absolutely. And do you think you'll stay in Manchester as well?
I'm not sure at the minute. I don't know where I'm going to end up. I might move back to where I went to uni because I love Nottingham.
Okay.
I'm a little bit attached to there. But it's kind of wherever I find work, wherever I see myself going. I'm not really too fussed. I haven't got many predictions on where I'll be, so it's just seeing how life goes.
Yeah, I think that's quite nice. And yeah, I always hate the 5-year plan questioning because it's like so much can change like overnight, let alone in a month or a year. So it sounds like your options are open, and that sounds like the best way to be. um, and then lastly, I wanted to ask you before we kind of wrap up and you say where people can listen to your podcast. Special interests. Please info dump on your special interests. I would love to know more about foam swords, the figures that you paint. Yeah, just feel free to go nuts.
Oh, I've had to contain myself for a lot of the podcast and for most interviews because I know I can absolutely go off on one. But no, I got into Warhammer like a couple of months into the process of making the podcast, and I just got obsessed with it.
Oh, okay.
And I started writing the sleep episode not long after the incident where I got my first couple of figures and I just built them. And I really, really wanted to start painting them, but it was like 10 o'clock at night and it was raining and it was dark. And I was like, I just want to check I have everything. And I have a lot of neurodivergent friends who were all into it. So it's turned into a Warhammer D&D campaign. It's turned
Oh.
into me joining my partner's Warhammer themed live action role playing group, which I'm going to later in the year, which is going to be quite funny because I'm a wuss. I'm scared of everything. And I've just gone, well, I guess I'll play my fears up and just be terrified of everything. And everyone's thinking that's funny.
You're playing to your
So,
strengths. I like that.
yeah. So, with the whole thing around LARP, I got into that through uni again for another neurodivergent friend who was like, hey, you should come to this event with me. I think you'd enjoy it. So I put together a basic kit. I had no clue what any of it was.
Mhm.
I learned to play the ukulele.
Wow.
I did. Well, I act like I'm good at it. I'm absolutely abysmal. I can play some basic chords ish. And I turned up and I had so much fun.
Oh.
I wasn't sure if I'd like combat because I did like this new player's skirmish and I got pushed over quite a bit and I was scared of hitting people too hard and hurting them. And then I got to be a monster in this big battle. It's like 800 people fighting these two huge ones.
Whoa.
So to make it fair, if you want to fight as your nation, you have to play as a monster
Right,
on the opposite day to keep the numbers balanced.
right.
And I was a monster on the first day and I had so much fun. And then I came out going, this was the best day ever. I like to stab things.
I've learnt I like to stab.
And
Amazing.
it kind of spiraled from there. And then I had my whole burnout health crisis, which actually turned out I just have really rubbish blood pressure and I can't run in chainmail.
Right. I mean, there's only one way you find that out, I guess.
So I ended up taking up LARP archery. So I have a really weak bow and foam arrows, and that's actually become my weapon of choice. And I somehow got recognised for being a good archer, despite the fact I have a 50% hit rate at most.
Oh,
But
cool.
so I own quite a bit of weaponry. Otherwise, I've got characters as a psychic space cat with 4 Nerf guns at this point.
Incredible. I
And some sort of crazy sci-fi doctor.
oh, cool. I'm just imagining your kind of weaponry collection.
I don't actually have that much. I have a bow, my set of arrows and a quiver, a sword, a shield, and a few too many Nerf guns.
I mean, that's more than most people, I feel. You're prepared for
Oh,
anything.
trust me, you have not seen the vans people bring. They have.
Vans.
I've seen tents full of weaponry.
Wow. God, people really
I don't
go
know
for
how
it.
they're expensive.
Yeah, exactly. How do you fund that? Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got the expensive hobby autism, so that's quite hard. Everything I'm into is not cheap.
Yeah, because like
It sucks, but I
Warhammer,
also love it.
yeah, Warhammer stuff is not it's not cheap, is it? But
No, I got very, very lucky, and I've almost kind of fell into an army I have, so I'm going to learn to play in the next couple of months, which is very exciting.
that's
But
cool.
goodness knows how long it's going to take me to paint them all.
It sounds like you're into quite a lot of like kind of creative hobbies as well, like if because you were saying about the crocheting as well.
Yeah, I've always been a creative. I mean, I did English at A level and BTEC music. I was never going to go into something maths or sciencey.
Mhm.
It was just working out where to put the creative energy
Yeah.
and where it would be a way I could do so within being autistic and that I would actually be able to live on because as much as I like amateur dramatics and stuff, I would never be a musical theatre performer.
Mhm.
And I knew stuff like, and I'm not putting myself down. It's things I genuinely knew were like, would be nice, but absolutely no shot.
Yeah.
So it was all about working out where could I channel everything I'm into. And it's kind of what led me into broadcasting
Mhm.
because because I didn't just have to write things, I got to edit, I got to play in our mock up studio. So I got to mix the cameras or count the clips. It was a lot of new experiences. So it was just working out where to put all my creative energy.
Exciting though, and it's yeah, it sounds like you are just a person that seems to I don't know, you seem to pick up like passions and creative outlets and things, and podcasting obviously being one of them. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you do next, see where you go from here. Um, and where can people find you kind of on the internet? Where can people listen to the podcast? Any links, anything you want to promote?
The podcast's called It's So Loud in Here. It can be found on BBC Sounds, and my social media is at Living Neurodivergence on TikTok and at Keira Edwards 39 on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you. I'll also pop those in the show notes. And I guess for BBC Sounds, you can listen like on a browser or on the app, can't you?
Yeah, you can literally Google it, and as long as you sign in, go wild.
Oh, wild. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing, yeah, a bit about your life, a bit about your work and your podcast. And yeah, I hope that people will now, after listening to this podcast, go and listen to Kira's podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.